and it's basically the Black Lives Matter movement. And people are like, wait, how are they hurting their campaign? And it's basically just what Trump touched on is the lawlessness. And yeah, 93% of these protests are peaceful. They are. But the 7%, it roughly translates to like 300 and some change of violent riots, protests, whatever you want to call them.
And the density of those protesters, like there could be like 100, maybe even more than 100 protesters there. You know?
Exactly. And there's billions in property damage. A lot of small business, minority businesses are affected. And, you know, what we're seeing is the Democratic Party basically being like, oh, this needs to happen. This violence needs to happen, when it doesn't. Like with the Armenian protests that are recently going on, we're seeing tens of thousands of people come out in the streets and not break a thing. More people broke things. Like it looks more like the recent Lakers win where they came out on the streets and started burning stuff.
But I think an important distinction should be made where most Americans
are down with the movement.
Yeah, with the movement, the sentiment, the idea, the philosophy behind Black Lives Matter, because there is a true problem with police brutality in America.
I wouldn't say philosophy, because they've put some stuff on the website that's like,
or like just
pro-communist,
like
but like the idea
yeah.
of, hey, Black people matter.
Yeah.
Most people don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, but it's the physical group itself that people are starting to be torn on.
And I think, you know, like you said, yeah, like I support, you know, Black lives as in like let's help Black lives. There are you cannot say like look anyone in the eye and be like racism doesn't exist. Like we know these things. There are racist police officers. Are they all racist? No. But there are some racist police officers, some that have done a lot of excessive force, you know, that haven't been fired. So there are changes that need to be made. But Black Lives Matter as a whole, I wouldn't say supports Black lives. Even I'll put up the clip of, you know, Don Lemon on CNN talking to Terry Crews, Terry Crews came out against, you know, Black Lives Matter too. And, you know, Don Lemon said on live television, like, if you want to go make, you know, a all Black Lives Matter movement, go do it.
The Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was talking about police brutality. If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, you know, Black communities, then start that movement with that name. But that's not what Black Lives Matter is about. It's not an all-encompassing.
He's basically saying like Black Lives Matter is only about police brutality. And I think that's sad because more black people die in Chicago from gang violence than police officers killing Black people in a year.
And like what you had said earlier about business owners, and I wanted to explain that just a little bit for the viewers at home. So if you're a small business owner who's had this business, you know, for 2 or 3 generations in your family, then especially if you're living in a blue area, then boom, the pandemic hits. Then you have these super strict restrictions to where super uptight strict restrictions to where you can't do anything. And then you almost go bankrupt, and then you're poor, and then you're broke. And then finally they open up. So you can start making money again. You can start doing more commerce, building up the business again. You're like happy, you're getting money. And then what happens? There's a protest, and then it turns violent. And it basically turns into a riot, and then I'm not going to say crazy, but then what happens is some agitator, some individual who probably is like co-opted Black Lives Matter, it might not even be from that local area, burns down the business. Then guess what? Guess what happens to that person, or what probably or could happen to that person? That could essentially turn him to the right side of the political spectrum, and now he's a Republican.
And there were some Black business owners that were affected by this, where their businesses were not, what's the word?
Looted.
Yeah,
like here in
looted,
LA,
right?
there was a Black, we posted a story here on The Wave about a Black-owned business, like a clothing store, that was looted. And they even had like, hey, like, this is a Black-owned business, and a lot of these businesses are putting like, hey, minority-owned, Black-owned, and they still get looted. And so you have to think when when there's no like law and order, like in California, they said, nah, bro, like it got out of hand, but the military came, the police came, and they said, nah, not today. Like, it's not, you can protest, but if you get violent, we will put you in your place, right? And like Los Angeles did an amazing job with combating these riots, right? But what we're seeing in like Portland and Seattle is
It's utter war.
literally they can literally just run the streets.
Yeah.
And you know, gun sales have gone up, especially in California. Gun sales have skyrocketed. And so what we're seeing now is when you have Biden and Kamala straight up like saying, you know, this needs to happen. I'm going to support the bail fund. Then what happens? Oh, I'm going to vote for Trump because they don't support law and order. My business was suffering already. And you basically didn't condemn the people that destroyed it.
And some of the black business owners, they did say, oh, if it's for the cause, it's for the cause. Like, some of them agree with it, but they're kind of ignoring the other people's businesses who were damaged. Like, I think it was a store in New York, or it was some major city. It was Asian owned. Like, it was like a local little supermarket, and everybody knew him. It was like a local family store. You would go there, say hi. Like, everyone knew each other, and his business was completely destroyed. Like, that was his entire livelihood, and this made him question whether, like, why does it have to affect him this way, even though he is in support of the movement? You know? Right.
Yeah, and we're seeing this like across the board, and basically everyone's like, oh, well, you know, the Targets and the McDonald's or Starbucks, they can afford it, so, you know, it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, like, some of these businesses, like, depending on insurance, like, depending on what coverage this person has, in their insurance policy, it might not cover certain things. So if it's something crazy expensive and they can't cover it and they need it for their business, they could go out of business.
That's pretty arrogant for someone to be like, I can destroy this business because the insurance will cover it. What the is wrong with you, bro?
I got into a debate with one of my girlfriend's friends, and it was basically an argument, and she was basically like, oh, like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's for the cause. Like, we need to riot. We need to do this so they know. It's like, no, why don't you go with your local Congress people, politicians, your lawyers, and go say, hey, let's make some legislation to make a change in our community and actually help our community rather than destroying our community. And we've seen that other protests and they work and they do these things, like the Armenian protest. They're coming out in the tens of thousands, almost hundreds of thousands. Yeah, it was a couple days ago, and are they violent? No, they're just bringing attention to it and saying, hey, this is what we want to happen. We want CNN to cover this. We want this news source. We want you to cover it more. Whereas like Black Lives Matter, it's basically, now when you hear about a Black Lives Matter protest, you're more likely going to think of violence because of how it's covered in the media. And they're losing major support. Like, they're losing a lot of ground, especially with some of these, I'll put it on screen. One of the recent Black Lives Matter activists stole like 200 and something thousand in donations. You know, and you have stuff like this, and there's more and more people that are not supporting the movement. But like you said, like, I support the idea of let's help Black people. Let's make sure that, you know, they're not unjustly killed by police officers.
This isn't the way.
Yeah, but this isn't the way. Don't burn down the neighborhood.
Also, like, on top of that, there are some individuals in BLM. I think I saw it from Tim Pool, who had said that someone in Portland from BLM had basically ratted them out. Had ratted out Antifa, who were going to protest with them. But in saying that, no, this isn't the case, and Antifa is actually like they want to like cause violence or something like that. If we find it, or if we can find the actual like police report or something, we'll put it on screen.
And the whole movement too kind of ties in with the whole coronavirus thing. Like, there's some hypocrisy in it. Like, when Corona first came out, like December, January, Asian hate crimes skyrocketed, right? Yeah, dude. Like, in New York, there was this one grandmother. She was lit on fire by some kids. There was
holy what?
Yeah, she was lit on fire. I I believe she's alive, but yeah, she was just walking, minding her own business.
And that happened after they announced like Corona,
Yeah,
like after everyone knew about Corona.
yeah, but I think this was like
is
a little
wrong
bit
with people?
like a few months later, I believe. But there are a lot of Asian people saying, "Oh, we've felt these crimes," and 4 in 10 Asians would say they've experienced some type of discrimination, whether it be verbal, action-based, or even physical, right?
Yeah, that's. I have my girlfriend. She's Chinese, and she even like says, her going into public with a mask when it first started happening. Her getting on a plane with a mask when not a lot of people were really wearing masks because it wasn't that widespread. Like she would get weird looks, like, oh, like let me not sit near her, let me not be around her, and it's just like, I think it's crazy that this really is America. Like no matter what people say, like America doesn't really have. It's not really racist. I wouldn't say it's racist as a whole, but there are a lot of like racial tendencies. When something happened, like World War II, what happened with Japanese Americans? Exactly. The school we went to was all that land Japanese owned. Yeah. Like it's crazy that coronavirus hits and then Asian hate crimes go up.
Even Asian businesses were affected. I think this Chinese restaurant in New York, it's pretty famous. Previously with swine flu, it did see some negative impact, but especially with coronavirus, they've lost a lot of revenue and business, and especially now with the whole pandemic situation, no one's even gonna go into a restaurant because nothing is dine in, or even if you dine in, half the restaurant is open, so that's even worse. And for some of these Asian people who were marginalized, the media doesn't cover it.
That's true. I haven't seen a lot of it.
And they feel unrepresented, unwanted, unsafe. And there are some people that are questioning, why should I support this movement if you don't care about me,
But you have to understand, that's what a lot of the media sources, I'm not saying all, I'm saying a lot of the major media sources, it's all about money, dude. Like they don't care. They really don't. Like think about it.
Money runs everything here.
Exactly. Money trumps all. So, CNN would love to cover Trump 24/7, which they do, which is why I don't watch CNN, because I actually like to look at the news sometimes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Me and my brother actually played like a quick little game where we heard I don't know where he had heard it from actually, I don't remember, but it's essentially like we switched between CNN and Fox News and see who's talking about Trump more. Guess who it was?
CNN?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Exactly, and you can see that they're only going to cover, unless it's like like ABC7 in California, like unless it's like a local source like The Wave, we're a local newspaper here. Like they really don't care about the community. They really don't. They care about who's going to give them the most money, and they basically
what story is going to get more views?
Yeah, what story is going to get more views is based on how much money they bring in. Just like with the protests, Black Lives Matter protests, they're going to cover the violent ones, and they're only going to show the violent ones because that's what makes the money. They're not going to show like the other 93% of the protests that are actually peaceful, because it doesn't. Oh, look at them. They're being peaceful protesting black injustices.
And then it just pans over to like a city on fire.
Exactly. They don't want the peacefulness. They want to show violence, and that's what gets them views, and that's what's hurting the movement. And like you said, like other people are like, why should I support Black Lives Matter when you can't bring attention to other things? And especially with CNN, dude. CNN to me is garbage because, like, dude, like some of their stories like are not biased, but when I watch the show, it's just like Trump sucks. Trump is terrible. Don't vote for him. Trump is garbage. It's just like, bro, hey, like you said, is there anything else? Like, I would like to know about the world news, what's happening in China, what's happening in Armenia, like all these things, but you don't care. Like, it's crazy.